bad weather. Obviously, thunderstorms can be very dangerous for a number of reasons, and we knew that they were in this area of bad weather. Pitot tube design. I mean, again, even before the wreckage was discovered, Air France took steps to replace the brand of pitot tubes that were on that plane with another brand. Pilot inexperience. Obviously, nobody on the ground knew it at the time, but nobody knew that Bonin was at the controls. But maybe you shouldn't have the junior pilot flying the plane if things might be potentially dicey. Inadequate training. Now, this gets really to the main point of what I want to make today, which is that this ties into the question of alternate law as well, of normal law and alternate law. When airplanes were first invented, and for decades afterwards, they were kind of jury-rigged, rickety contraptions, and the pilot had to be on board, not only to fly it, but to maybe fix it if it broke, or try to solve the many problems that were likely to arise. You lose an engine, where do you put it down? You need a human being for that. But in our modern age of computers and space travel and everything, humans have stayed the same, and the computers have gotten better and better. And today, the most unreliable component of a modern aviation system is the human being who's in the cockpit. And most fatal aircraft accidents today are human error. And so you start to answer the question of what do we do about these unreliable human beings? And the answer is, well, let's make the computers better. Let's let the computer refuse a request to stall the airplane. Let's let the plane fly itself at altitude. And so Bonin had never hand-flown an Airbus at altitude before. The first time he ever hand-flew an Airbus was when the computer handed it over to him. The computer said, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully you can figure out what's going on. And it's dark, and it's the middle of the night, and they're bad weather, and he's scared. That's not a good way to start to learn something. I mean, you could say that this piece of ice in the pitot tube caused this accident. You could also say that this was an accident waiting to happen, that you could put this junior pilot in an unfamiliar situation, give him the slightest perturbation from routine, and he panicked and crashed a perfectly good airplane in less than 5 minutes. Took it 7 miles down in less than 5 minutes. So what do we do with human beings? If you don't trust them, so you don't let them do anything, they never learn how to do it. And so it's kind of a catch-22. And this gets to the fundamental flaw in our conception of air safety, really to how we conceive civil aviation today. And what are human beings supposed to do? Let me just answer this in just a second, okay? So in their final report, the BAA wrote, the failure of the attempts to understand the situation and the destructuring of the crew cooperation fed on each other until the total loss of cognitive control of the situation. That doesn't really make any grammatical sense, but I think you get the point. Human beings largely serve a supervisory capacity in modern aircraft. They plan, they communicate with ATC and all this, but basically they're there if something bad happens to try to figure out what it is and get the plane and its passengers safely home. But here's the problem. The kind of high-stress, low-information, time-critical decision-making that this kind of supervision is likely to be required in is exactly the kind of situation that human beings, the human brain, is least equipped to handle. So, in exactly the same kind of situation in which an airplane computer is likely to panic and take itself offline, the human conscious rational brain also panics and takes itself offline. And so, as the BEA wrote in the final report on this crash, this shows the limits of the current safety model. This is a kind of a fundamental and perhaps unsolvable problem of aviation. Now, having said that, which is kind of a grim thing to say, we have to bear in mind that commercial aviation is incredibly safe, like almost incomprehensibly safe. At any given moment, over the United States alone, there are 5,000 aircraft airborne right now. And yet years go by in which not a single fatality occurs. So when we look to reduce the fatal accident rate to 0, we're really chasing after an incredibly tiny and elusive goal. And what this air crash really shows up is that it may be impossible as it's currently configured, or perhaps as it's ever configured. Maybe going up in the air is just a fundamentally, potentially dangerous thing to do. Maybe life is a fundamentally dangerous thing to do. Now, I briefly, maybe I can take a question right now.
Part of what you've been describing the last couple of minutes is a fundamental philosophy difference between Airbus and Boeing.
Right, right. And so, I think maybe we'll see a change in philosophy. Maybe the argument will go more one way than the other. Maybe there will be no more asynchronous controllers. I don't know. But it is an interesting question. I mean, if humans are flawed, how do we get over that? I just briefly wanted to touch on, this obviously is mostly about civil aviation and things that happen at flight levels, but what about for us guys down at 3,000 feet? There's two things that I wanted to point out that the pilots of Air France 447 did or didn't do that that we see many times in the crashes of small planes. First of all, they didn't declare Mayday. At no point did they try to communicate via high frequency or whatever. And so they didn't ask for help, they didn't declare Mayday, and they didn't run any checklists. And why? It's impossible to really say, but I think in many cases you get into, and I've been in situations where maybe I should have, but you get into this automatic frame of mind where you just do what's right in front of you. You can't think creatively enough even to say, okay, where's the checklist? Or which checklist should I run? If you don't trust any of the instruments, how do you know that you're supposed to run the unreliable airspeed indication checklist? In fact, you can get into a phenomenon called perseveration, where all you can think about, you only have one idea. And so you carry that idea out, it doesn't work, you try it again. And this is pretty much what happened to Bonin. Nose up didn't work? Well, how about more nose up? Maybe pull it nose up a little harder. It's like, if you've got a hammer, everything's a nail. And it's easy to make light of it, in the calm, cool room that we're in. But if you're in that situation, I've been there. You cannot think of anything better, and so you do the one thing that you can think of. One of the first things your flight instructor ever told you was, when in doubt, fly the plane. Just fly the plane. Don't try to get into some careful reasoning. Just keep your eyes out the window, wings level. Yeah?
I'm going to stand.
Okay.
So I don't fly Airbuses. I'm familiar with Boeing.
Okay.
So we're certain the captain never came back.
No, he came back.
Never took a seat.
He
Right?
did not take a seat, correct.
Was in the jump seat or standing there, whatever.
Yeah, he was right behind them.
Okay, maybe the A330 pilot can help us out. What happens on an Airbus when one pilot is putting one input in and another pilot is doing another? Who gets the
Okay, right.
Airbus?
That's a great question, and let me attempt to answer it, and if I'm wrong, maybe you could jump in. You can choose to have the inputs coming from one side or the other. There's also a dual input mode, and this happened for a while where Robert was trying to correct the situation. He had the nose down. It was in dual input mode. Bonin had the right stick back. Back plus front equals neutral. So it averages the two. It can be one, it can be other, it can be both.
Would a checklist have saved them? Running the checklist saved them?
Probably an item on the checklist would have been elevator neutral.
Actually,
Would that say-
no, what had happened, and I'm just like that lady over there, another type rater at 330, there is a recall memorized item that they should have applied right away.
That's a great point.
And there's a lot-
Wait a minute, hang on. I don't want to totally lose control of the room here. This is a cockpit resources management here. I appreciate you guys helping out, but you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's. I'm kind of running out of time. Let me see if I can get to the end of this real quick. I can take some more questions for a few minutes, and then if you'd like, we can talk about it outside because there's another program that's coming in. So let me just try to wrap up my points. Look. Let me just jump to the end because this is what I want. Now, not too long ago, someone published a book which claimed that there's two kinds of people. There's the kind of person, 90% of us, who, if they get into a scary situation, if they get into a crisis, they panic, they freak out, they lose it. And then there's another 10% that, when they're in a scary situation, they maintain calm, they stay in charge, they do what needs to get done. I couldn't disagree with this idea more. I feel that every single one of us has the capacity to panic. Every single one of us has the capacity to stay in control if we need to. And it has partially to do with our character, it partially has to do with our training, it has to do with the nature of the situation. But we should not look at the situation in these pilots and what they did and think, I wouldn't have done that, or I would have done better, or that was stupid. These are highly trained pilots, very intelligent men, highly motivated, and working for a very prestigious airline. And so we can prepare ourselves for emergencies, and we can hope for the best, but we are human beings. Human beings are fallible, and we can take some heart from learning about this particular incident, but the ultimate lesson of Air France 447 is that perfect safety can never be achieved. And so that's what I had to say to you today. Like I said, we've got maybe 5 minutes, if we could maybe have quick, okay.
Yeah, I would like to clarify, this hours as total time means absolutely nothing. If your total time was on an Airbus or Fenway airplane, no one would do that.
Right, so what we had here was a failure to follow that kind of procedure. The clear delineation of the responsibilities kind of fell apart, and you had people taking control without announcing that they were taking control, and all kinds of things. I appreciate your expertise in this.
For the Airbus pilots, how much flying do you do?
Yeah, that's a great point. And let me take a couple of these questions. I just want to make one quick point. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so thanks very much. Listen, I'm out of time, but I'm going to be in the lobby, and so I'd love to talk about this more. I really appreciate the expertise that you guys bring, and you've been really great, and thank you very much.